You know how incessantly I'm telling you can make a difference in the world? Well, I finally figured that what I was saying was right, and I'm making a difference in the world. But it doesn't change the fact that all of us are here to make a difference in the world. Some of us are already doing that. There are those among us here in this room that are already having a very powerful, profound effect on the world. Some of them you know. Some of them maybe you haven't met yet. But every one of us has that in us. I want to introduce you to someone who has done such a thing and has truly made a difference in the world. By being so generous, beyond the understanding of most people, she has made a difference in the world. Some have called her crazy, denounced what she has done, thought it was not appropriate. Yet she did it anyway. And as a result, she was featured in People magazine, featured in the New York Times, and hundreds of other newspapers and magazines. She has been interviewed on programs such as The Today Show and CBS Evening News. She has spoken at many conferences and given commencement speeches and spoken with thousands of people about this gift that she's given. She's been a member of this center for years, and most of you don't know her story. So I want to invite an amazing presence in our community to come speak to you today and share her story. I am so grateful, honored to invite Joyce Roush to come speak with us today.
Thank you, John. And thank you for the most wonderful introduction to my discussion today. So blessings to all of you and talent for what you brought. I'm just a little curious. Do any of you have any idea what gift John was talking about? Oh, just a few of you. Oh, it's so exciting. In 1999, I became the first person in America to donate a kidney to a stranger.
Wow.
And so that is what John was alluding to. And it has been a most amazing journey for me. As John mentioned, I've had the opportunity to speak actually all over North America, talk to thousands and thousands of people about what happened in 1999. The first question that people always want to know, and I'm quite sure it's probably what most of you want to know, is why in the world would somebody donate a kidney to a complete stranger? A husband, a wife, a brother, a sister, we might understand, but why would someone take a part of themselves and give it to a complete stranger? What I told the media during that time, because it was the easiest thing to tell them, is that we were just born with a spare to share. I thought about actually having a bumper sticker made for the back of my car that says a spare to share. I realized, though, that everyone who got a flat tire would be stopping me and asking me for help. So I decided that that probably was not a very good idea. The reality is that my decision was based on a whole lifetime of preparation. I was born in 1954. I was born to parents who were undereducated, poor, and alcoholics. My parents quit drinking 2 weeks before I was born. So I grew up in an environment of AA. While other kids learned the Pledge of Allegiance, I learned the Serenity Prayer. Exactly right. I thought that every young person went to an AA meeting on a Sunday night. In fact, it wasn't until I was about 15 that I realized AA wasn't even really something we were supposed to talk about. It wasn't politically correct. So I grew up in an environment of learning the principles of the Serenity Prayer. My dad was a carpenter, never made much money. But what he taught me was purpose. The the lesson that he shared with me is that our lives are not measured by how much material possessions we acquire, but what a difference we make in the world. That if the world can be a better place at the end of our lifetimes here, then we will indeed be a success. My mother taught me the profound message of gratitude. She took in ironing, she cleaned other people's houses to make ends meet for my family, and I never once heard her complain. The message that she shared with me was the message that had carried her through her whole lifetime and eventually would carry her through her death. And it was the message of, I cried because I had no shoes, that I saw a man who had no feet. So from one of my parents, I learned life purpose. And from my other parent, I learned gratitude. And with both of those messages, at the age of 19, I fulfilled my lifelong dream at that time to become a registered nurse. My first 10 years as a registered nurse were spent in trauma. I grew up real fast there. I learned that life isn't fair. I learned that bad things happen to good people. The 17-year-old couple on their way to prom hit and killed by a drunk driver. The 40-year-old self-inflicted gunshot wound brought him through the ER. The mother carrying her child, blue and lifeless, having discovered him in his crib 10 minutes before the victim of SIDS. I saw the very worst that life had to offer. And through it all, I saw courage and I saw nobility. I also learned a little secret working in the ER. If your parents ever told you you need to wear clean underwear every time you leave the house in case you're taken to the ER, I tell you it doesn't matter. We don't pay any attention when you're brought into the ER. What kind of... After 10 years of working as a trauma nurse, I went to hospice. At least there, I reasoned I would know the outcome of all the patients I would care for. They were all going to die. I loved hospice. Hospice comes into a person's life when everybody else leaves. We bring caring, we bring compassion, and we promise that no matter what happens, that we're going to be there with that family and with that patient. We share the very final moments that a person has here in this lifetime. By the time I had spent 20 years in nursing, I had seen 1,000 people die. I took those 10 years in trauma and those 10 years in hospice, and I combined them in 1997 and went to work for an organization called the Indiana Organ Procurement Organization. I was living in Indiana at the time, and it is an organization that works with families to help them make the decision to donate their loved ones' organs to save other people's lives. It was the most difficult job, vocation, calling, that one could ever imagine. And because I have a little extra time, a couple of minutes, I want to put you in the position of my families that I worked with and then bring you back to the position that I was. So everybody, just take a real deep breath for a second. Okay, now close your eyes. Hold in your mind the face of the person that you love more than any other person in the whole world. Just hold that image for a moment. Keep your eyes closed. Imagine that 3 days ago you got a call from Mission Hospital Trauma Department that your loved one had been admitted to trauma, the victim of a motor vehicle accident, and you needed to come to the hospital right away. And so you go to the hospital. You're told that your loved one has sustained a very critical head injury. The nurses and doctors don't yet know the outcome. However, the prognosis does not look good. Your loved one is transferred to the neurointensive care unit. You call your family members. You spend the next 3 days in the quiet room of the intensive care unit. You pray, you cry, you go to your loved one's bedside. Nothing happens. Your loved one never wakes up. And 3 days later, sitting in the quiet room of the intensive care unit, the neurosurgeon walks in wanting to talk to you and your family. He explains to you that your loved one has suffered irreversible brain damage. Your loved one is clinically brain dead. There is nothing that can be done to save your loved one's life. Despite the fact that they're on a ventilator, despite the fact that they're warm, despite the fact that they're pink, your loved one is clinically dead. And over the next few hours, there will be some decisions that you will need to make. And there will be some people that you will need to talk to. And someone will be in just a few minutes to help you start making some of those decisions. Open your eyes. Because the next person that walked in that door was me. I was the second person usually that families talk to, explaining the option of organ donation. You can imagine that. A family has just been told that their loved one is clinically brain dead, and I'm there to ask them if we can take most of what is left of that loved one to save the lives of complete strangers, people that that family will probably never know and never meet. And the most amazing thing is that 90% of the people that I talked to said yes to me about organ donation. 90% of the families in the very worst moment of their lives said yes to save the lives of complete strangers. I was amazed. I was amazed. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, because I knew that there were 8 to 10 people who would have a second chance of life because of the generosity of that family. I also knew that somewhere down the road, my family that I was talking to in that moment was going to find some comfort because something good had come out of the death of their loved one. A year after starting with the Indiana Organ Procurement Organization, I attended a conference about 3 hours from my home, a conference for organ transplant professionals. One of the presenters that day was a Dr. Lloyd Ratner from Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. He was there to tell us about a new procedure that they had pioneered to remove kidneys from living people called laparoscopic nephrectomy. I really did not want to listen to him talk. I've been in the medical profession. I don't like it when doctors talk. I don't understand most of what they're saying. I don't like the big screen blood and guts that they always show. I almost went shopping. Barbara, I still think of you in buying shoes, okay? I actually almost skipped the session and went shopping at the big mall. However, I decided to stay. Dr. Ratner started speaking. The minute he started speaking, it was if I felt a tap on my shoulder, literally. And this voice said, "Joyce, you can do this." I said, "What?" This voice again said, "You can do this. You can donate a kidney." Now, I don't normally go around hearing voices, okay? I really don't. I had only ever actually heard voices one other time in my 40-some-year life at that point. It was when I was bungee jumping off of a 300-foot bridge in Costa Rica. I got about halfway down in the free fall, and this voice from heaven came down and said, "Are you crazy?" So hearing voices was not something that I normally experienced in my lifetime. It's funny that that was the voice I heard, "Were you crazy?" Because that was something that people would ask me many times subsequent to my decision to donate a kidney. However, it was very clear to me that I was going to donate a kidney. So Dr. Ratner finished his production and asked if there were any questions, and my hand immediately shot up. Shut up. He was very, very East Coast. He had a very clippy accent, and he goes, "Yes, ma'am." Now, I had envisioned that if it was so easy to donate a kidney, which in my estimation, a laparoscopic procedure is pretty easy, that Johns Hopkins must just have thousands of people lined up outside of a transplant center waiting to donate kidneys. I envisioned like it is the night before a big rock concert goes on sale. People have their sleeping bags and they're lined up for blocks. This is the mental image that I had of what must be happening in Baltimore if it was so easy to donate a kidney to save a person's life, especially compared to what I was seeing as how kidneys and organs were donated. So that's what motivated that. My question to him was, well, Dr. Ratner, do you just have patients lined up outside your door waiting to donate kidneys? He wouldn't even answer my question. Okay, he didn't even answer it. He said, next question, please. He didn't even answer it. So I thought, oh my gosh, that was not the right question. My coworkers sitting around me who knew me said, oh sure, Joyce, go ahead, be the first person to donate a kidney to a stranger. I thought, you know what, I am, because I'm going to do this. So he ended his question period. We had a little break. I went up to him, introduced myself. Dr. Ratner, my name is Joyce Roush. I'd like to donate a kidney to a stranger. Took one step back and crossed his arms. Not good body language here. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, well, do you know someone who needs a kidney? I said, no, sir, I don't. However, there's 44,000 people waiting for kidney transplants. Somebody has to match my kidney. He said, is this going to be a problem? Another step back. Yeah, this is a big problem. He said, this has never been done in America. I said, well, that's not a problem for me. Is that a problem for you? Third step back, yes. I think that will be a big problem. I said, approaching him 3 steps so at least I could get close enough that he could hear me. I said, Dr. Ratner, here's my business card. I'd like to call you in a few days. I think at that point he was praying he would never hear from me. Okay? He had really believed that he met the craziest woman he had ever hoped to meet. I must have just landed from a spaceship from outer space, and honestly, he really did not want to hear from me. So, conference ended. I drive back to Indiana. The whole time I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm so excited. I know the first obstacle is going to be telling my husband. Now, my husband was someone who would leave the room when Grey's Anatomy came on. If one of our kids cut their finger, I had to take care of him first before I could take care of him. Right? So telling my husband that I was going to donate a kidney to a stranger was going to be a monumental challenge for me. So I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to break this news to Richard? And I think, okay, well, I'll just do all the things that we women know to do to get our men to do the things that we want them to do. I'll get all dolled up. We'll go out to dinner. You know, I'll have a couple glasses of wine. And then I'll say, you know, by the way, Richard, I decided I was going to donate a kidney to a stranger. And I had this all worked out. I thought, that's my best chance of success. So I walk in the back door of our home, and he's in the family room right inside, and I hadn't seen him for a couple of days. I'd been at the conference. So he gets up, gives me a big embrace, and goes, hi, sweetheart. How was your conference? I have no idea what happened to my plan. Because the next words, the immediate words out of my mouth are, oh my gosh, Richard, the conference was great, and guess what? I'm going to donate a kidney. He literally went to the bathroom and threw up. So once I got him settled down and we talked about it a little bit more, I really was on this path that I was going to donate a kidney. So I let about a week go by. I contacted Dr. Ratner at Johns Hopkins and told him that I really was very serious about this. I really did want to proceed with giving one of my kidneys to a complete stranger. Now, this is 1999, okay, so you've got to go back a bit here in history. And he again explained to me that this was going to be a monumental event, that it had never been done in America. They didn't even know if ethically it would be allowed. So the first step would be to determine whether or not I was healthy enough to make that gift to a complete stranger. So the medical testing started. I gave more blood than the American Red Cross collects in a successful blood drive. They tested me for everything. Honestly, I think they were hoping to find a reason I couldn't give the kidney. Okay, it wasn't that I would qualify. I think at that point they were actually hoping to find something. Well, they couldn't find anything. I'm so darn healthy. There was nothing wrong with me. So over the next few months, I had lots of medical testing done, past phase 1. At that same time, Hopkins now is presenting this to their ethics committee. You know, they've got to decide, is it legal? They make the decision that yes, they think ethically it will be okay. Then they tell me I have to pass a psychological evaluation. How many of you would like to prove that you are sane? So I flew out to Baltimore for no other purpose other than to meet with a psychologist to prove to them that I was sane enough to make this decision. Okay? We're now about 5 months into it. I'm still working in organ donation. I'm still working with these families who are making this decision in the worst moment of their lives. 6 months comes and goes. Richard comes running down from our second-story home one day, just amazed. He goes, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He said, "There's somebody on eBay selling their kidney for $1 million. Now, that's illegal. eBay immediately pulled it, but not before a whole lot of people saw that you could sell a kidney for $1 million. I never let my husband forget how much I was worth, by the way. There's a lot of mileage on that one. A year comes and goes. I still haven't heard from Hopkins that I can have the surgery. I'm still going to the trauma centers in Fort Wayne every day, working with families. I carried my cell phone with me, just like potential recipients carrying a beeper. They're hoping to get the call that there's been a kidney. I'm carrying my cell phone, hoping that I'll get a call that I can finally give my kidney to somebody who needs it. The transplant list is growing every single week. 17 months after I approached Johns Hopkins about donating a kidney, I got the call. Yay. They had found a 13-year-old young man from Aberdeen, Maryland, who had agreed to be the recipient of the first non-directed kidney donation in America. Flew out to Baltimore a week before the surgery. By that time, the media had become aware of the story. Johns Hopkins had asked me several months earlier, would I be willing to tell the story? And I said, yes, I would. Because I so believed that if I could tell that story, that there would be other people who would do the same thing. And so the media in Baltimore at that first meeting was everywhere. Christopher and I met. We gave interviews. The go-ahead was given. I came back to Fort Wayne. The media basically moved in with me. I learned some funny things in working with the media. First of all, see this little battery pack? Be sure to turn it off when you go to the bathroom. Don't say anything to the media that you don't want quoted on national television. I, at one point, compared my kidney donation to being as easy as having a boob job. I was really happy when I saw that on national news. Nonetheless, we told the story, and I flew out to Maryland on September 6, 1999, and on September 7th, 1999, fulfilled my dream to donate a kidney to a stranger. The last words that I told my family before I went into surgery is, don't worry, it'll be okay. I said the prayer of protection that we have been taught in many places, especially at the Unity Church. Those were the last words that went through my mind as they put me to sleep. And on national TV, with the cameras rolling in the OR, they took my kidney out. I worried about the tattoo here, by the way, but it never showed up. Anyway, 5 hours later, they had my kidney. They put it in a little red and white igloo cooler. They carried it down the hallway, and they transplanted it into Christopher. It was a success. Yay. I didn't see Christopher until 72 hours after the surgery when there was a press conference, and he was doing very well. I came back to Indiana 5 days after surgery. Went back to work in 2 weeks, if you can imagine. One of the things that Dr. Ratner had told me was that I'd be able to go back to work in 2 weeks. Well, I had the whole darn world watching me. Didn't matter how bad I felt, I was going to go back to work in 2 weeks, okay? Over the next 2 years, I traveled throughout North America, traveled into Canada, speaking to church groups, organizations, commencement exercises, medical conferences about why someone would donate a kidney to a stranger. As John said, they called me crazy. Dr. Ratner with the CBS Evening News to Dan Rather said, yeah, I did think she was crazy. But that actually became the topic of my presentation. Was I crazy? It's like, okay, you guys all think I'm crazy. Let's just bring it right out. Was I crazy? It was almost impossible for me to convince the medical community that a normal, sane person would make this gift of life to a complete stranger. And yet I kept telling the story over and over and over again. In 2001, I had the great honor to be selected to carry the Olympic torches that traveled across the United States, the Salt Lake City Olympics. It was the most amazing experience I ever had. It was a cold winter's night in January. I could see the flame being passed from person to person on the street that I was going to stand and pick it up. And I was dressed in my Olympic outfit, and I held the torch, because it's actually not the torch that gets passed, it's the flame. And as I held my torch out to get the flame, it was as if that symbolized my journey in being the torchbearer for non-directed kidney donation. So I got the flame, and I held the torch, and I carried it as I ran the streets through Fort Wayne. And then I passed the flame on to the next torchbearer. And at that moment, I really felt that my journey as a torchbearer for organ donation was over. I really had that sense that it was time for me to take off the costume and put all of the articles from the newspapers and the magazines and the videotapes in a box under my bed. And that's what I did. I went home that night, I took off my Olympic clothes, I put everything in a box, and it went under my bed. And I turned over to the universe the outcome of what I had decided to do. 10 years passed. I moved to North Carolina. Both of my parents died. My children grew up. I accepted a job at Park Ridge Hospital as the head of community wellness, where I currently work. Nobody knew what had happened in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that was okay with me. I didn't check the internet to see what had happened. I didn't Google my name to see if I was still there. I just knew that I had done what life had prepared me to do, and it was no longer mine to carry. Last year, 10 years after that decision, I was nominated for and won the Athena Award, which is an award given to women who demonstrate outstanding work in their area of profession and have made a difference in the world. I was shocked that I had received that award. When the presenters did a little investigation, though, on Joyce Roush, they discovered that she was more than what had happened here in North Carolina. And so the story of my kidney donation came back out again a decade later. And I was back in the spotlight, interviewed in magazines, newspaper articles again. And I got a call about 3 months after that award from the TEDx organization in Asheville. I have to tell you a funny story about that. I never heard of TED. I never heard of TEDx. So when this lady called me and said she was from TEDx and they wanted me to come present at their conference, I thought she said she was from FedEx. Why is this lady from FedEx calling wanting me to talk, okay? So she called back a second time, because I told her no the first time. She called back a second time and said, okay, I get that you don't know anything about TEDx. Have you heard of TED? I I said, no. By this time, okay, I know it's not FedEx. So I have this idea at call number 2 that Ted must be some guy that goes around and teaches people how to speak for money. Okay, that's where I was. She said, just go on the TED.com site, which I did. She called me back the 3rd time and said, look, we really want you to present at TEDx this year in Asheville. She said, would you be willing to do it? I said, yes. Okay, I'll do it. Here was the problem. I had no idea what had happened in the field of organ donation in 10 years. I had no idea. If I was going to present again after a decade, I had to do some homework. I had to find out had anything happened since I had made that decision in 1999. So I sat down at my computer, as most of us do when we need information these days, and I typed in non-directed kidney donation. Now, when I had typed that in 1999, you know what I got? Nothing. Okay, nobody knew it wasn't done. Typed it in last summer. There were 1,400,000 matches. Non-directed kidney donation is now being done in every state in the country. It's being done in 13 countries in Europe. It's being done in Australia. Non-directed kidney donation is now the fastest form of organ donation in the world. Yay. I have no idea. I have no idea. So what I would say to each of you is that within each of you is a power that you have no idea. That when you're walking through the valleys, you don't know what life is preparing you to do. I had no idea during all of my years of nursing, even when I made the decision to donate a kidney, that it would turn out the way that it's turned out. But it's continuing to walk, it's continuing to trust, it's continuing to do what you talked about in your song. That we may not be on the pedestal, but we can be amazing. And so I would challenge each of you with the deepest gratitude that I have for the experience that I've had in this lifetime to know that your lives can make a difference. Every single one of your lives can make a difference. I would wish for you that you carry life purpose in one pocket and gratitude in the other pocket, and to always know that you have that ability to be a powerful being in this world and to make a change that even you cannot imagine. So I say thank you, and I say namaste.